The one thing that you can see as a steady, consistent theme, where it started with Jamie Comer's committee, Jim Jordan's committee, ultimately Jason Smith's committee, is that every step of the way, they've been consistently going after the facts to try to find out exactly what happened with all of these web companies, these shell companies, that whistleblowers were coming forward saying it wasn't just about Hunter Biden, that ultimately money was going into Joe Biden's checking account. What you saw at the White House over and over again was a constant changing of the story. The White House has changed its story multiple times as the facts have emerged over and over again. If you look at some of these poster boards, you see checks, you see more facts that continue to be released. And as more facts come out, the White House continues to try to change their tune to cover up what really happened. As Jamie Comer talked about, tens of thousands of pages of alias information still at the White House that they won't turn over to Congress. What are they trying to hide at the White House? Why won't the White House fully comply and find out where all this money was coming from, foreign countries, ultimately into the pockets of various members of the Biden family to the tune of millions and millions of dollars? We start a process of moving a few bills on the floor this week. Tomorrow, we're going to actually have a vote on that Iran bill. $6 billion Joe Biden negotiated to give to Iran. Now, let's think about what happens here. This was negotiated prior to Hamas invading Israel. Where does Hamas get their funding? They get their funding from Iran. Everybody knows that. The Biden administration knows it, yet the Biden administration opposes this legislation because they want the Ayatollah in Iran to get that $6 billion. Why would Joe Biden want the Ayatollah to have access to $6 billion knowing it goes to fund Hamas and other terrorism? We're going to be taking a strong stand to freeze that money tomorrow. As more illegals pour into our country, millions more illegals come into our country, they're using federal lands in the Biden administration to house illegals. They're waiving environmental regulations that military veterans can't use, homeless veterans cannot use today, but they'll waive every environmental regulation to allow people coming here illegally to use those very same federal lands. And we're saying you can't use those federal lands to house illegals. That vote will be on the House floor tomorrow.
There's also going to be a vote on the House floor tomorrow to expel one of your members, George Santos. You have not said if you support this. Do you support expelling George Santos?
We had a Republican conference meeting in the last hour. There were opinions shared on both sides. I'll answer it this way, Manu. Listen, I said that the Republican Party is the rule of law team, and we are. We believe in the rule of law. There are people of good faith who make an argument, both pro and con, for the expulsion resolution for Santos. There are people who say you have to uphold the rule of law and allow for someone to be convicted in a criminal court before this tough penalty would be exacted on someone. That's been the precedent so far. There are others who say, well, upholding the rule of law requires us to take this step now because some of the things that he's alleged to have done, the House Ethics Committee having done their job, are infractions against the House itself. And so what we've said as the leadership team is we're going to allow people to vote their conscience. I think it's the only appropriate thing we can do. We've not whipped the vote, and we wouldn't. I trust that people will make that decision thoughtfully and in good faith. I personally have real reservations about doing this. I'm concerned about a precedent that may be set for that. So everybody's working through that, and we'll see how they vote tomorrow.